session of our weekly developer calls. These sessions are mainly intended for active developers to discuss pure developer topics. We try to keep it related to this topic, but of course, when there is a burning question, we can discuss about this as well. Anybody is welcome to join also in the Hangout or watch us on the YouTube live stream. Let's jump directly into it. We have defined a rough agenda, what we want to discuss. Just to say a little bit quickly, as we expected a little bit more developers, but one is expecting it, or his wife is expecting a baby, so he cannot join. Another is sick. He was at least sick a few days ago, and one is just joining by chat for privacy reasons, and Craig is missing. Naiman, he's not really active developer, so he will not join at each call at least. And Devin has probably, hi Chris, hi, welcome. Nice to see you. Devin has problem with the time zone at this event. It was very hard to find a matching time time where every developer is able to join. I just started with the basic introduction, Chris. The main agenda would be to talk a little bit about the pull request and commit policy. Chris is a specialist on that, and he has written a very good blog entry how to do proper Git commits. And the main thing what I want to emphasize is that a pull request should really describe the feature, what it implements, and should be only focused on that feature and not mix different aspects. So better make small pull requests which really do just one thing. And that's the other thing. Also try to keep them quite small so they are easier to review. When pull requests are getting very long and very big and complex, then it's very hard to review. And inside of the pull request, the same for the commits. Keep your commits small and contained with one thing what they're doing. Also try to give a good describing name for the commit. Add, when they're a little bit more complex, add some description what the commit is really doing. And I think that's the main aspect. So I will later add the link from Chris' blog, which is much more detailed. Or Chris, would you like maybe to jump in here and give your feedback to that topic?
Okay, because we just stopped hearing you, or at least I did. Maybe that's just my thing. But if you share the link, that says it all about commit messages. It doesn't really tell you about pull requests, but what you just described is completely sufficient, I think. So I don't think I'll add anything else.
Okay. Then,
Can others hear me?
Sorry? Sorry, Chris, I didn't understand what you said. Okay, then we jump.
Sorry, Christoph, can you hear Manfred? Because I don't hear him anymore.
Christoph, do you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. I hear you, but a little choppy, but that might be of my connection today. So
Bernard,
I'm not sure if you guys.
Is the audio okay on your side, Bernard?
Now I hear you both. It was really choppy too, but
I can hear everybody perfectly.
Okay. I don't know, but it sounds like.
Does anybody else has anything you want to add here?
No, it's pretty clear.
Regarding, so I'm not 100% sure because the audio was a little bit choppy on my side as well. Regarding naming of the pull requests, to make it as small as possible, is because for the releases, request trying to create a kind of a release notes document, and it's quite difficult if there's just general big pull requests to go in there and to find out what kind of feature was integrated, and to compile it into a nice release note. So the best case would be if I can just go through the pull request, copy the title and the link, and that's it. So that's the perfect case scenario for me for the release notes.
Yeah, actually, I think you really should think of this when you make a pull request. It should be a feature which is added in the release note and a user-facing feature, even if it's the pure development stuff. But it should be something which makes sense in the release note for a user when he reads, even if it's something like improved testing framework or whatever. Hi, Craig, by the way. Yeah, Craig, we just started, and I think you didn't miss too much. Just was talking about the pull request and commit policy. Maybe you watch the live stream afterwards when it's published, to not repeat that part, but nothing really very complicated. Yeah, then maybe let's jump. I mean, the second point what I want to discuss is about testing frameworks. We got quite a few different testing frameworks. Basically, every developer comes with his preferred testing framework, and that's probably not very good for the project to get so much mix. But because Florian is not here, I would prefer to postpone it for the next session when he's here as well, because yeah, he used also another testing framework, and I think it's better that all those persons can discuss directly. Or do you have any?
I personally don't have any preferences regarding the Java testing framework, because I switched back to Java just a year and a half ago, and before that, it was 10 or 12 years ago. There was, yeah, the frameworks back then was so different. So yeah, I can't bring anything to the table there.
Goody, then let's postpone this for our next session. I want to give a little bit of overview about the different domains, the milestones in the different domains what we're working on. As you know, Bernard is working on the API, Craig is working on the new trade protocol together with Naiman, Florian is working on, at the moment, on monitoring, but basically on the peer-to-peer network improvements. Oscar is working on the Bitcoin J domain, and Christoph on the UI mainly, but also all kind of stuff in the application, and SQ and myself are mainly, SQ is focused on the DAO stuff, and I should also be focused on this, but have to jump around all the different stuffs. And I want to give maybe start with the easier one, or with where I don't need to say so much, or don't know so much to update here. That's the with the peer-to-peer network. So as far as I'm aware, Florian is at the moment working, as he has already deployed a very basic monitoring, which just checks or tests the Tor startup and how long it takes for a hidden service to be deployed. And now he's working to connect to our real seed nodes and measure how long it takes and if they're reliable and which data they represent, and it should basically cover more or less the use cases what we have in our current monitor page, which is very rudimentary and very basic monitoring. And I'm not super up to date about the state, but he's working on this already, and I think before he got sick, he had already good progress on that. He used for the UI, for the display, he used a framework. I don't remember the name, but there is a proposal where everything. How it's called?
Grafana.
Yeah, Grafana. In his proposal that he has published, he has described everything very, very well. By the way, it's really a top proposal from the quality. Also, when all proposals would be like this, would be perfect. And I think I cannot add much more. I mean, the basic milestones or the targets in that domain are that we get first proper monitoring, so that we know that the nodes or the seed nodes are really delivering the correct data and in the right state and are responsive. Then to know more about the network, how many peers are alive, how is the network traffic and so on. And then when we have a good monitoring, then we will start to improve the peer-to-peer network from optimizing it, performance improvement, refactorings, and more protections against DDoS attacks or whatever. But yeah, it's good to have first some measurements where we can see when there are changes, first to test if the changes are not breaking anything, and also to see if they really improve the metrics of the peer-to-peer network or not, because it's a very dangerous area where you can easily break something or decrease performance by doing something where you think you increase it. To get the testing framework for the peer-to-peer network is also on the midterm or long-term goal or roadmap. That will be quite complex and difficult, but it's something what we want to get as well at some point. Then I jump to the Bitcoin J domain. Oscar is since many years a very active developer on Bitcoin J. In all his projects in the last year, he worked in some extent with Bitcoin J, and he's one of the, next to the main contributors, to the maintainers, he's one of the main contributors to Bitcoin J. And the first task was that he investigated alternatives, because we wanted to get basically rid of Bitcoin J for many reasons. One reason is the privacy leaks with Bloom filters. The other reason is that many features from Bitcoin Core are not implemented, like SegWit replaced by Fee and many other. The current maintenance of Bitcoin J is not really great. There's very low progress going on, and SegWit is in development and should be released someday, but yeah, it's already more than a year, I think, in development and not released still. Unfortunately, it turned out that there are no other real alternatives what we can use. A main target was to use Bitcoin Core in SPV mode. There was a project from Jonas Schnelli, but unfortunately it doesn't meet our requirements from resource and usability perspective. And all the other projects like Neutrino they're all basically not production ready, not well tested, or not have enough features what we require. So it turned out we need to stick with Bitcoin J, and our mid or long-term goal is that we are improving the library, and mainly maybe Bisq alone or in cooperation with other projects like Samurai Wallet or Mycelium, kind of taking over maintenance, or not officially, but that our branch really implements all the missing bits from Bitcoin Core, and bring this project forward again and fix the privacy issues and so on. It's a long and very challenging task, and probably not doable by one developer alone. So that probably when we go more in this direction, we need either cooperation with other projects, so we share the resources, or we hire more developers in that space. For short term, at the moment, we used not the latest release branch, that's 0.14.7, but the one before, 14.4. There was not a ton of changes, but a few changes. And the way how we edit our features was not very nicely done. It was a little bit chaotic, and he cleaned up this basically to have all our changes in clear commits, and some maybe might get added to upstream master, or that he make a pull request there. And he checked out, also he created a new fork based on 0.14.7, also on the latest release, which is already, I think, 2 years old as well, and then apply our changes to that release in a clean commit history. I think he's already pretty far, but important part, of course, was a review of all these changes. There have been a few more complex changes, mainly for supporting onion addresses for peers, and for and some improvements in the peer handling. And those are, I think that's the next task what he want to work on. But because his wife got a baby, there will be a break, and I don't know when he will return, in a few weeks maybe. And when we have, sorry.
I just wanted to ask about finish first, Manfred.
Yeah, so that's the current goal, to basically get our changes updated to the 0.14.7 release branch, and then we would switch to that release branch. A part of that will be that we get rid of lib.doge and the alternative base currencies, Doge and Dash and Litecoin. There are no plans that we would use this anymore, and it's just dead code at the end. So we want to clean this out as well, and especially it makes then the dependency management easy again when we don't have lib.doge in between. So that's basically this milestone for him. And after this, he will go on to work on our Bitcoin package in core and start to reviewing everything and improving, refactoring, and cleaning up there. I mean, he did a review. That was his first task. Basically, he did a review of the BIP44 implementation, what I did. And it seems that everything is okay. I think he had one or two minor things, but nothing critical. So that was done already, but then there would be a bigger, that would be a longer task for improving the Bitcoin package. One part of that task will be to find out the issues with transactions, which doesn't get published in time. We don't have many, I'm not aware that the arbitrators have reported any issues with missing transactions anymore. So it seems that it works, but we still get in the logs that sometimes transaction, we don't hear back. They get published in reality, but we don't hear back. So there is still some issue that will be one of the bug areas where he should work on. And then the midterm goal will be to improve Bitcoin J as well. So the next big goal will be to improve our Bitcoin related code, and then to help to get features implemented. Replaced by fee would be very important, but of course SegWit, and but that will be a bigger story.
Manfred, do we have contact to the other projects the bigger projects who are using Bitcoin J, or do we know besides Samurai Wallet who is using Bitcoin J for their production?
So I was always in contact with the lead developer from Mycelium, Leo Vanderslav, and I wanted to actually get him into Bisq, but for whatever reason he never joined us. I'm not at the moment. I'm not in contact with him, so I'm not updated with anything. That's a year ago, I think. There was contact with Samurai Wallet. I was never in direct contact. With one developer who worked at Blockstream, I'm in contact. He was not working direct, but Blockstream used also the Andreas Schildbach wallet for their mobile wallet and built on top of that, but I don't know much about this, and it's a normal company and not a company with very good reputation when you hear the stories from inside. I think that's not a target where we want to get cooperation. As far as I'm aware, it's mainly Mycelium and Samurai Wallet. Wasabi Wallet would be interesting, but they have completely different technology stack. They're not using Bitcoin J. It's C# and custom implemented stuff. So I think there is, beside conceptual overlap, there is probably no way to work together. And not really aware of any other bigger project, but there will be for sure. I think on Android, probably all wallets which are SPV wallets are based on more or less on the Android, on the Schildbach wallet. We might have different goals because those are usually very focused on the mobile area. Often they use at the end some dedicated server or some federated server model. I mean, we also have now kind of like a federated server model, but in a different way, like the mobile providers probably. So there will be different requirements and so on, and we'll see how this, if there's enough incentives for different projects to work together, or if we just try to hire more developers to get this done. But that's long term. That's for sure. We cannot start on this in the next 6 months, I think.
Just want to ask, because I saw that there are more than 1,800 forks of the Bitcoin J library, and I guess some projects might also have updated and improved their own fork, their own branch, so we don't start to re-implement too much stuff. If they're, because going through all the forks is kind of impossible. It's so much to go through, but
yeah. Yeah, I think the number, probably maybe 1% of the forks are doing real stuff and the other are just watching and working. I assume, but I assume that anybody who would have done some serious work like Samurai Wallet, they have implemented SegWit in some way, which is probably different, like Andreas Schildbach is doing it now. I just followed very superficially the discussion, and it's a little bit complex how to deal with it, I think, regarding backward compatibility and so on. Not really trivial to find the best concept how to support it. I assume that any wallet which would have done extra work, valuable work, they would use it for their marketing and PR. And I never heard of anything, but we will for sure research and shout out to the community and ask anybody. We asked already, like, how, yeah, we were considering also to switch already to the master branch, but there are tons of changes. Also, the latest release and the current master, that's, yeah, there. It would be a huge risk, and there was very few feedback. And from the little feedback, it was basically do it on your own risk. It's nowhere really in production. Some people use it more or less for themselves and so, but I think it would be too risky at the moment, at least, to do this. I think Jameson Lopp is somehow working. At least he's active on the mailing list as well. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he seems to be using Bitcoin Chain in a way. He would be for sure an interesting contact as well. Yeah, then let's move to the next, maybe their payment, the new trading protocol. Actually, I would use tomorrow's growth call to discuss and explain a little bit the new trade protocol, because I think not many people have really read the proposal and have heard of it. And yeah, Craig and Nyman are working on this, Craig on development side and Nyman more on the conceptual side. The goal is the implementation of this new trade protocol, which kicks out the arbitration. There will be only a 2 of 2 multisig, and instead of the arbitrators, there are mediators. And to avoid the blackmail risk with a pure 2 of 2 multisig, we have this feature that the payout transaction can be sent to a donation address. It can be the Bisq donation address or anything which is defined in the DAO. And by that, the funds get burned at the end for the users, so they cannot take out the funds anymore, and then can make a reimbursement request. And the DAO will, it's a little bit of an insurance model at the end. So when you really would get burned by having a trade with a scammer who don't pay you, and he's not cooperating, then he will lose his security deposit, and you can ask for reimbursement to get your losses covered. And the progress, maybe Craig, do you want to say yourself something about the current state, the progress of the development?
I don't think there's much to say right now. It's still early on, so hopefully more to say soon.
Yeah. Craig, do you have an idea when we might have a first version, a rough version, just for playing around a little bit, just for developers?
No, I'll think of this for next. I'll have a better answer next time.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. So one thing is it will depend on the DAO. So we cannot go live before the DAO is at least live and stable, because the DAO is an important feature in this concept. I mean, I can give a little bit of background or feedback about what's already implemented, as we created a branch for the new trade protocol as well for the API. The reason why first we tried that those developers are having their own foreign branch, and I do the review there, and they are doing the merge and so. But in practice, it turned out that didn't work well, and I didn't have time to really follow up there and so on. So I decided that we get better progress when the code is really in Bisq, and then to get merged into this branch, it has basically the same requirements like to get merged into master. So it has to be basically production code. Of course, with new features, sometimes you cannot really use it as long as it's not fully implemented, but the basic use cases like doing a trade should always work. and the code quality have to be production ready at the end. And I think with that model, we are getting better progress. That I'm expecting a pull request for every smaller milestone and doing the review, and then he can develop on his private branch before as however he likes. But I think then it's it's a better structure for me. And another thing is that I would like that the compensation requests are done monthly for this work, and we are not getting them one big request at the end. Both of the API and this is a long-running project, and it's very difficult to estimate the value then when there is a few months work, or with the API it's even much longer already. And to avoid this, to have such big packages where the contributors or the stakeholders need to vote on, I prefer that we have every month's delivery. And I would treat it the same like merge to master, as when it's merged to these branches, the intention is that we get to master, but we cannot go to master at the moment because the new trade protocol will be a hard fork, so it will be not compatible to trade between old clients and new clients, because it would be just too much effort on the development side. We would need to manage all these domain objects from the trade, like the offers, the open offers, the trades, and trade protocol classes in two versions, basically the normal version and the new version, and it would be a nightmare to maintain. And the goal is anyway that we stop the old trade protocol as soon the majority of the users have moved over, because we don't want to run the arbitrators too long, maybe 2 months or something, and then basically the old trade protocol should be gone. So it would not be worth the effort to add a lot of risk and dead code, and which we need to clean out in 2 months later anyway. So that was the main reason why we decided to make a hard fork at the end. The users can still, when they update, they don't need to do anything, or they have all their data compatible and so on. They just cannot trade with users who have not updated. So the network will be basically split. You don't get offers, and you cannot trade with users who are still on the old trade protocol.
And Manfred, for the hard fork, so let's say, so if people stick around with the old version, and how will we kill the arbitration support, or how is this possible?
Yeah, I mean, all these details are also conceptually from the new trade protocol. There are still questions open, or detailed question at the end. And how we do the hard fork, and especially how we communicate the hard fork to the users. I got already their feedback, and so that people are very negative with anything new, because it's logical. I mean, any change carries risk, and when it's with money, people want to avoid risk. And they got used and understand now the old protocol, and then they need to learn and understand the new protocol, so it's a challenge. I have not thought about more details, how to do this, how the process is, how long it will work, and so on.
I mean, I could say one thing, as far as I know, that as soon as, basically, if there were no more trades going on, or actually, if there were no more arbitrators, so if all the arbitrators removed themselves from the system, then no more trades would be able to be done after that. Because to do a trade, right now an arbitrator is required. So that's one way to stop people from using the old version.
Yeah, I mean, one way could be to make it not so hard, because when we stop the arbitrators after 2 months or one, and some people want to use it, it's forcing them basically. Yeah. Easier way maybe would be that we increase the fees, because I mean the arbitrators are more expensive. That's one reason why we want to move away. Because of the included risks with the arbitrators. When the arbitrator make a mistake, he can lose 1 Bitcoin, and that luckily it never happened. But we had cases where, when I was arbitrator, 3 times I made a wrong payout, and luckily the users were always honest and paid it back. But in the worst case, I would have paid 1 Bitcoin, which can be, with Bitcoin price of $20,000, it's a lot of money. But the arbitrator has to pay it from their own pocket, so they will not work for free and not for cheap, because they take a lot of risk. And when there are very few trades, and arbitrators still need to do it, and it can be still for one trade the case, as if one trade a month, and then the arbitrator make a mistake with the payout, he can also lose 1 Bitcoin. And we need to carry this at the end. And when there are a few trades, those who want to trade still, they need to pay much more fees. So we could increase the fees a lot in that version, which is maybe a little bit problematic because we only can increase it by updating the software, and then people will not update probably. But that might be at least one way how we can have a soft pressure to stop users using the old version and move them to the new version. I think the best is good education, that they really understand why we want to move away. Another would be that we basically say, Bisq, we are not supporting it anymore. Anybody can run a fork and provide arbitrators, but then you have a trust problem, why you should trust somebody who has not built up any reputation and with some random or anonymous arbitrators. So that might be maybe even a better approach when we see that a certain percentage, a small percentage, still want to stick, and they are very hard to convince. Yeah, they can do it anyway. Anybody could do this anyway. So whatever, it's an open question conceptually how we deal with this. There was even one idea, but I have not thought deep about this, to keep the arbitration in the new protocol, and by default, the arbitrator key is a non-existing key, like all zeros or whatever. So there is no public key for creating this key, because this 2 of 3 multisig, when the third key is invalid by default, then it's basically a 2 of 2 multisig. But maybe we are more flexible that for certain cases or during this transition time, we allow the arbitrator still. That might be an option to help the users to get used to the new trade protocol, that maybe the first 2 months there is still the arbitrator for the new trade protocol. And then after this, at a certain point, we are removing the element, and the arbitration key is basically this non-existing key. But I have not thought deep about this, but maybe that could be an interesting option to add flexibility at the end, because then when we would want to go back to the 2 of 3 multisig for whatever reason, we still have everything in place. And then the insurance part is then just an add-on, which is not used usually as the reimbursement part. And so, but yeah, that requires a little bit more conceptual thought before getting too serious about this. Any other questions regarding that topic?
No. Tomorrow, in tomorrow's growth call, do you know already if Naiman is about to make it, or Craig, are you joining tomorrow?
I'll be here.
Perfect. Yeah.
Naiman cannot at this time, unfortunately. But I still would like to use it for when there's no other important topic, to use this to talk a little bit and explain it a little bit and so on. And yeah. Yeah,
makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Then move. I don't know if yeah. Let's move to the API first. Yeah, Bernhard. Also, we just today we merged the first pull request for the new API branch. So the infrastructure is now in place with the HTTP API. It just has a very minimum implementation for get version that works, and it has some restrictions, like when you have set up a wallet password, you cannot run the headless version at the moment because the support for this is missing. But that's the next task. And the goal is basically, yeah, to get a minimal viable version of the API production ready as soon as possible with very small steps. I mean, the minimum viable version would be basically to do a full trade, also to create an offer and to do the steps required in the trade process, but not to set up a payment account to make a transfer from a wallet or anything else, what's not absolutely required. And before we get deeper into the implementation part, yeah, we want to solve to find the solution for secure access to the API. So when you have run it somewhere in the cloud and you want to access it from your mobile or whatever, how to do it in a secure way. And we would like to, that's still in discussion, as I cannot say too much about this, but the preferred version would be something over to our hidden services. And yeah, we would like to get Florian involved in that discussion. He's a security expert and Tor expert. And beside that, yeah, ask Bernard to investigate a little bit the effort to switch to gRPC. Chris would prefer to not have HTTP API at all and move directly to gRPC because they're much more modern, and I cannot say too much about it. I'm not an expert in API domain, but maybe Chris can give his comments afterwards. And ask Bernard to investigate himself. I started a very basic gRPC implementation a while ago. You need to change a little bit to make it running again with the current version, and to investigate how much it would cost us effort when the already working stuff in the API would be moved to a gRPC infrastructure. If it's not terrible much effort, I would prefer also to do this when we see that's the better approach. Otherwise, I would prefer to go on to not burn a few weeks or months or even by starting again freshly with implementing another API. And it could be anyway when the infrastructure and everything is there, we could do then the same in gRPC later as well. But that's still up to discussion. And Bernard and Chris, maybe you add your own input to this topic.
Yeah, I can't say too much in the end because I'm not doing the work. So I reviewed the pull request that got merged, just adding some of these thoughts. And mostly, I want to make sure that we're just carefully considering these options before we go too deep on anything. I think at a high level, quickly, the idea with focusing on an RPC-based interface, and gRPC tends to be one that people in the space are using, but RPC in general, modern RPC in general is, it's just different assumptions when you're dealing with peer-to-peer node-based software than it is when you're dealing with a centralized web service that needs to open things up programmatically, right? REST and JSON have evolved like they've evolved with certain sort of flexibility trade-offs and things like that. And with an RPC-based infrastructure, you can generate type-safe clients in any programming language, especially with gRPC. All the bindings are there for all the different languages. And it's just, with how important it is to do things correctly in this domain, having type safety across language boundaries and being able to generate clients and do all of that stuff for free is just miles better, in my opinion, than whatever you're going to do to spin up to connect to a quasi-RESTful interface, right? There's just lots of ambiguities that you can just avoid, whole classes of errors that you can eliminate in an RPC kind of environment. So that's sort of one thrust for pressing on that a bit, and the other one is just seeing what other people are doing in the space, right? I've mentioned it a bunch of times about what Lightning has done, and you just see people who are building this kind of software, whether it's Bitcoin itself or Lightning itself or what have you. It's RPC calls all day long, right? So just let's not ignore that, basically. And with all that said, completely agree with the kind of follow-up in that PR that says, hey, look, a lot of this is just groundwork and infrastructure to get any, sort of headless, daemon style, API style node into Bisq, all good. So we start there. And if we want to pivot to gRPC now, great. If not, fine.
Yeah. So one reason why I pushed this a little bit more at the moment was because people are using it already, the HTTP API, and we had that was a reason for the hotfix release, was because we received a trade statistic object with incorrect data with 0 for price and amount, which never happened before and shouldn't be possible from the UI. So I have no idea how it has been created, maybe from a bug or maybe a developer or whatever, or maybe it's an open bug that you can do it, but it never happened before. But it could be potentially that somebody playing around with the API produce invalid data and then pollutes it. And we had another case then in a trade that a bug happened in a trade that was also invalid data, which never happened before in the same way. So and Bernard looked into it and he didn't found anything that comes from the API, but potentially it could come. And as long as it's not really reviewed and well tested, we have basically this open risk surface. People are using experimental, not tested, not reviewed code, and we cannot avoid it because it's already out. And I think we should try to minimize this time and get to the state that people, when they want to use the API, they use the reviewed and the production-ready version. And that was one reason why I pushed this. But besides that, I completely agree. As said, I'm not an expert in that domain at all. One question will be if we really want and need access with HTTP, so that the user goes to a browser and access his headless version on a server, or if we want to go directly to the route that when somebody want to do this, they should download the mobile client, which probably will be only Android only, so that's an issue and problem, or that we are by default going over Tor and he will, I don't know yet, but I mean, to have access over HTTP, do you need HTTPS? Let's Encrypt doesn't work with dynamic IP addresses, so you get a lot of troubles. And with Tor, everything is just much cleaner and easier. And but when we go over Tor, then basically we don't want that the users has to install the Tor browser and whatever. It would be then really good that we are providing basically the software to access the API Android application basically. But yeah, the problem is that it probably will not easily be doable on iOS, or not at all. So there are different open questions and trade-offs. Bernard, do you want, or does anybody else want to add something?
I just wanted to ask regarding, because I'm not so familiar with gRPC itself, if it's conceptual-wise so far off an HTTP API that we can't reuse most of the underlying assumed gRPC users kind of passes kind of value objects, is a protobuffer classes back and forth with this binary code. Is gRPC the one from Google?
Yeah. Yeah, you're basically defining protobuffer objects for your value objects. So at the end, it would be, I mean, it's different now. They are writing their custom value objects for HTTP access, and then you write it in protobuffer. That should be the least effort at the end. One question, maybe, Chris, you can say a little bit more about the web RPC or stuff. I'm not really familiar with this.
I just know that it exists. I just started following the project to see when they finally released it. But the one missing piece from the gRPC puzzle has been basically HTTP bindings, if you will. You've got all these language bindings, sort of generate a Python client for your gRPC application that's built in Java or whatever it is. That's all great. But there's been no way to programmatically interact, basically via JavaScript, right? Like something in web, and that's there now. I really don't know much about it. I certainly haven't taken it for a spin, but I know that's been a big ask, right? Everybody wants to use gRPC, and the first question they ask is, is there a sort of a web client JavaScript friendly way to interact with the stuff? And until October of last year, the answer was no, and now the answer is yes. So I think we should, sort of one thing that has always rubbed me a little bit the wrong way about starting with an HTTP API, like us putting that out there, it's this, in a way, it's like a tacit endorsement of running Bisq somewhere in the cloud, right? And I just don't think that that's what we want to push on. That's not sort of and I don't, maybe I've missed it, right? But I don't think we have a lot of people, a lot of real users out there asking for this. I think we know pretty clearly people want to write bots against Bisq, and that's a classic use case for the RPC style approach. But it's not obvious to me that we really need this kind of first-class HTTP JSON style traditional, API, right? So just what we put out there means a lot for how people actually then go and use it. And I don't think I want to see a lot of Bisq running in the cloud, right?
Yeah, I'm also not a fan of that because for various reasons. But I assume, which I have no data to back up this, but from my estimation, I think probably 30% are interested. As I think I could imagine 30% of the interest in API is for trading bots, 30% for people who just want to run it on a server because they don't have their laptop online all the time, and 30% for using it for mobile access. I mean, that's another big area, I think, what we have to keep in mind. at least I get for sure such requests from time to time, but yeah, I'm not. I have not collected the requests. I cannot say how much really it is, but from my feeling, it's considerable demand for yeah, for this for this problem that you need to have Bisq running when you have offers and so on, especially for market makers. Yeah, they need to have a desktop computer which is always connected, and some people don't have this anymore.
Yeah, I just had a quick look at the gRPC web repository, and it looks pretty mature already. They have already a 1.0 release, and they are 1.03 already, and it looks quite sufficient from developing a web interface based on it.
Yeah, I would not doubt any maturity and quality questions when it comes from Google. I think it's high quality and very stable. But another question is, how is the format? I mean, now with HTTP, it's very basic that you have a JSON and a normal request. I have not looked to it how it works when you need to basically run your framework with some JavaScript library or Node or whatever, and it could be that it requires more overhead to get anything done, and not just type in some command into the browser with some JSON and it works already. So that might be a concern to consider a little bit. I'm not sure if it's an important one, but
yeah. You do instantiate classes to pass back and forth. So of course that's more overhead than just making a regular HTTP call. But yeah, it doesn't look super well. Yeah. But I'm just reading documentation, so I haven't tried it out personally.
Yeah. Bernard, do you have anything to add here?
Well, for me, my choice was the JSON API because this is like really popular. Like everybody knows about it. You don't need any special introductions. I don't need to fetch any additional libraries or generated bindings for my language. So, and I can write with very, very well defined and understood by everybody, very small, simple queries. We've got very nice documentation out of the box. So, and really good support for documentation. And yeah, so and we're not locked in any vendor because we can switch implementation really easily. And there are many implementations already for producing RESTful APIs. So,
yeah, I'm also wondering how much effort it will be to switch, because it's only one small layer at the end of how you listen to requests and how you are reacting with value objects. And I think that's not the biggest effort. I mean, the main effort is to get everything connected with the Bisq domain and so on, and that can be then reused easily. So I would, I mean, that's a question to Bernard more, how much effort it will be to have a second version of the current HTTP API development as a gRPC. Maybe that when it's not a lot of effort, maybe we can do it really in parallel, that with every new feature what we're rolling out now, there is a second version with gRPC, and then we have both. When it's not terrible much effort, why not?
Do you think it makes sense that we ask from in our community or on Slack just how people would want to use the API, if there are people already there who want to use the API, so we are not building stuff that maybe no one is using in the end?
Maybe add this tomorrow for the growth call that we're shouting out and asking, and on the Slack, and so there are some developers and so, and for the use case and for the preferences, for the skill set, maybe. I mean, it's a little bit, you need a little bit more sophistication to work with the gRPC, like the HTTP API. I think that's the most simple for any developer who want to use it. And sometimes, especially market maker, they are not really developers. They are just, they can figure out a little bit with scripts to get something working. But when you tell them more sophisticated tasks, they will fail. So that might be an argument also for the HTTP API.
Yeah, as I noted it. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I personally have to run at the moment, so I just wanted to say goodbye properly before I do that. One thing, I wanted to join this call for a few reasons. One, I think doing the dev calls, starting this up like a regular thing is a great idea. And I wanted to say hi to new faces. Craig, hi, we haven't met before. And to anybody who watches this afterward that I haven't yet met, hello. Some for sure know that are on the call that I'm in a kind of hiatus away from Bisq right now. And the reason for that has been going through the kind of last phase of this treatment for leukemia that I'm dealing with, which is a bone marrow or a stem cell transplant. And that was scheduled for a few weeks ago, and that actually fell through. The donor fell through there. There's another donor, and I'm now scheduled to do that same transplant at the end of this month. So I'm going to go back into the hospital on the 24th of this month, and then so it'll be another roughly, I'm told, 6 weeks. Could be much longer, could be a little less. But so this kind of hiatus that I'm on will continue for a considerable amount of time. So I also wanted to let everybody know that. And in the meantime, it's just great to watch everything happening. I'm not as plugged in as I have been in the past. I don't see every commit and every pull request and every single proposal and stuff like that, but I am still paying attention on some level, and it's just great to see what's happening. And welcome to everybody who's new or relatively new, and see you soon.
Yes, thanks a lot, Chris, for your update and for joining, and all the best for your therapy, and hope we see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Bye, Chris. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, regarding Manfred, the shout out, because also for the minimal feature set we want to focus on for the API might also help if we know who wants to use it, how. Yeah.
Yeah,
just to be really focused on a feature set that we want to bring out, because we know if it's live, people are going to use it.
Yeah, maybe we should make it even a little bit more sophisticated with a small survey where you really have serious questions and people can ask this. Maybe like you did this survey once, or I think that was easy to use, or a normal poll or whatever. Maybe Bernard or you, maybe you can could start something like this. I think that would be good. Is anything else with API? Otherwise, I would switch to the next topic.
Yeah, I think the most important part right now is the security. And so I will draw the proposal and we will have to discuss it. But I think that we should put some timelines, some deadlines for that, so we don't lose this between other tasks.
What do you mean with deadlines? That
yeah, so what we, for example, within 2 weeks we should have the thing discussed and made the decisions which directions.
Hopefully as soon as possible. Basically, I hope that we have this proposal soon, and then to get enough valuable input from experts and then implement it. But yeah. No, I'm also, that's also why I created these branches, to get it really on track now and not get lost all the time. And of course I'm the main bottleneck because I need to do the review and the testing and so on before I merge it. But you can help me. The smaller the request and the more defined everything is, the easier and the better the code quality already in the pull requests. The less I need to add, the easier it is that we get forward. And
do you guys think that it makes sense that we try to target to integrate it into next release, which will be I think beginning mid of February, so first or second week of February?
So I mean, when we release it officially, we need a little bit of higher level of testing. I mean, at the moment, it's only for developers. Use it on your own risk. And when it's deployed, then and I'm not sure if it's. I would target basically the main milestone when you can do a full trade with API, then it's ready for release. And before, I think we lose too much effort on testing and so on without really giving a lot of benefit for the normal users. And there's a big question still. I'm not super happy to get so much dependencies in the desktop application with the APIs. And technically, I think there's no way around this. And the only solution that I find at the moment is to have a second release, so the users can define if they want to release the standalone desktop or the desktop plus API, which carries a little bit more risk from all these dependencies. And yeah, I have not a 100% clear opinion, but just a gut feeling that I don't like to get too much dependencies from huge frameworks where we have no clue what's going on in those frameworks and which vulnerabilities they might carry. And by reducing it to just those few users who are using the APIs, that's maybe a few % of the Bisq users, we would reduce a lot the attack or the risk surface for this. And the extra effort is, of course, that we have the double effort with releases. But when it's better automated, that you just click a button and maybe also the VM startup and everything could be maybe done more automated by Docker containers or whatever, and then it doesn't really matter. And if you wait 10 minutes or 15 minutes for getting both releases out, might be a way to go, but that we can discuss later also when we are closer to that.
Do you think or plan even maybe to use the gRPC or the API as some kind of the API layer, let's say, also within the desktop client? So the desktop client is just leveraging this layer underneath. So it's kind of just another UI layer as the HTTP interface or the mobile interface.
Yeah, it would be, you would enable the API by a special program argument, use HTTP API is true, and then you could access your all the features which are open with the API over the API, and you run your desktop. So you have your desktop running, and you can type in get balance, and you will see the balance as JSON. It's basically similar like in Bitcoin Core when you open the debug window and then you are typing in whatever commands, RPC commands, and you get in parallel you can use the normal UI.
Okay, cool.
You cannot use it in parallel, so you cannot start the headless version on the same machine and the desktop. That's the same, like you cannot start 2 times the desktop, and there would be a danger and risk, and we have to make sure for the users to not run the same data directory in parallel on a server, headless, and locally desktop, and then doing parallel stuff will get out of sync and messed up, of course. So that's one challenge to communicate this very clearly, that users are not doing this mistake. Yeah, if there's nothing else, maybe we jump to the next topic, and then maybe we try to wrap up. It's already 1 hour.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Christoph, UI, maybe I hand it over to you directly, as you're the UI domain expert. What are the milestones? What are the rough plan for the foreseeable future?
Yes, let's say for the near future, plan is bug fixing. So we still have a couple of bug reports and issues in our GitHub repository. I'm trying to go through and fix everything before I will start anything new. Doing the first user interface, which will be a bigger task or feature set. I also want to focus on performance in parallel. So we do have from time to time reports regarding CPU usage or memory usage, and especially if people want to use Bisq on devices, hardware devices that have lower hardware available. I think we can still squeeze out lots of performance from the existing client. But yeah, I would just kind of time box and to see if there are some easy steps where we can gain some performance. And yeah, after that, actually I will just have to think about again after the first user experience is done, then I have to sit back and to see where we're going next. but I think the first user experience effort to implement in a proper way.
Yeah, great. Yeah, with the new design, everything went super well, and yeah, we got only super positive feedback. I think Pedro seemed to be a little bit more available again at the moment, so maybe we can use this time for getting feedback. Yeah, that he's reviewing the current application and giving feedback what he would like to change or whatever.
That's also a part. I still haven't implemented everything that he wanted to see in the client because of just efficiency constraints or time constraints that I have to put in place. So I will also try to push the client closer to his design proposal as well. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Another area is the DAO. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time, unfortunately, recently to do a lot there. I mean, we fixed this. There was a bigger bug in the DAO. Nothing really critical, but for the user critical because they got error messages displayed, and that's fixed. So everybody who is updating has updated to the latest version. And maybe they need to clean up their local state. There in the forum are instruction how to do that. Everybody is very welcome to help testing. Or I just looked before, and there were only one or now two other persons who have created a proposal. So please, everybody who is a contributor, use the DAO in testnet and help us testing. It's you're part of this. When we fuck up or when we go live with a big bug, our ES2 might have no value, and you have not earned anything. So please help us to avoid this scenario. And yeah, we are still mainly focused at the moment on stability issues with the seed nodes, with the Explorer nodes. I started yesterday to build their own monitor node based on the old monitor what I had to monitor the important states of the DAO and monitor all the 2 seed nodes and the 2 Explorer nodes what we are running at the moment. And also we would like to get a kind of a chain of hashes of the state of the DAO. So with every new block, when a block has been passed, there is a unique state of the whole DAO, and that can be hashed and then the hashes are basically chained together in a kind of like a blockchain, and we can compare, and so your client could basically request this hash chain of hashes from any other nodes and see if you're up to date or if you're out of sync, and if they don't match, yeah, something went wrong. That will help us to detect earlier when anything goes wrong and some clients are out of sync or whatever.
Just clarify, Manfred, with the blocks you're meaning peer-to-peer the data in the peer-to-peer network blocks, not Bitcoin blockchain blocks.
Yeah, so this will be a kind of like a custom. I just call it blockchain because yeah, there will be dedicated to each block if there is a hash which represents the whole DAO, and they are chained together. One block need to follow the other in the same way like Bitcoin blocks, and that will be a peer-to-peer network data object, very small one because it basically contains only this hash and the block, maybe the pointer to the block hash and the block height. But yeah, it's not a few gigabytes on data what the users need to download. And yeah, that's the main task at the moment. Another is to support that you can spend your own unconfirmed transaction output. So when you make a transaction in Bisq, it will be only verified when it's mined in a block, and that would decrease usability, especially for fee payments when you create a lot of offers in parallel. And your Bisq are taken as input and then as a change output. The change output is not verified until it's confirmed, and you cannot reuse it. So we want to allow this, that your own change output is trusted and you can use it as input for the next transaction. That's a little bit tricky and complex and dangerous, but hopefully we get this done also before the mainnet release. And another open pull request is to avoid that Bisq get burned if anything goes wrong. Yeah, we had seen already some bug cases which were not intended attacks or whatever, where just something was messed up because of usability or behavior, and then Bisq, the transaction became invalid because something was wrong. And then we don't want to burn the BSQ. It should be basically a kind of like an irregular, I want to introduce a new state, irregular state. Also it's a transaction, like a compensation transaction, where the payload, the peer-to-peer network data is missing, so it's not really a valid transaction. It will not be considered for a compensation request, but we still don't want to burn it, and the BSQ which are included here have to be available for normal funding and so on. That's another main thing. Then the emergency tools have not thought deeper so far about this, but and that's probably a smaller task. Testing, of course, and trying to get everything ready for mainnet.
Cool, sounds great. Manfred, regarding the DAO, so there will be at least 1 or 2 releases, I guess, until we are thinking about putting the DAO on mainnet. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't expect it will be before March. Or I mean, at the moment, I only can spend something like 20% of my time on the DAO. The rest is required for managing other contributors and all these other projects and so on, and that's needed as well. And I cannot be the bottleneck for all the other projects at the end. I cannot proceed, and unfortunately, that's doesn't help a lot to get progress on the DAO, but that's the situation. Yeah. Do we have any other thing open? What we want to talk, or any other open questions? Otherwise, maybe let's wrap up here. For any developer who is listening this call, feel free to join us to learn more about the Bisq DAO, the Bisq project itself. There are a lot of documentations out on our docs webpage, also docs bisq.network. You will find introduction for a new developer, what to read up and to learn about. We have the DAO already running since more than a year. It's not real money at the moment. You cannot sell it on the market, but you can earn already BSQ. And we're doing this monthly compensation request. So whatever you want to earn, you're making a request for this, and then the other stakeholders will decide if they accept or reject this request. And so you can earn already potential money. It's not you cannot convert it to Bitcoin at the moment, but when we go live, you can sell it then. And we are looking only for senior developers at the end. We don't have resources to onboard our junior developers and help junior developers. Of course, it's needed as well for the whole ecosystem to help junior developers to get deeper into this topics and so on. But we don't have the time and resources to spend time on this. So anybody who is already experienced with one of those domains where we are working on Bitcoin, peer-to-peer, basic application development, UI, cryptocurrency system design, like with the DAO, and general Java, of course, is very welcome to join us. We could need more dev power. Even we are already now pretty good with 5 full-time developers and 3-4 part-time developers. Not so bad. But there's a lot to do still, and any help in hand is very welcome. Goodie, then let's stop it here. We will have our next call next Wednesday at 2 o'clock Central European time again. If anybody wants to change the time for another, just feel free to initiate a poll for finding out another slot where it's possible. Unfortunately, Devin cannot join at this time. Would be nice to have him here as well, but it's very difficult to find a slot which works for everybody. But I'm completely open if anybody wants to do this initiative to find another slot which works for all active developers, then we can change it. And otherwise, let's meet again next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.